What I'd like to do, very briefly, is to hit on 4 issues, and I'll do this very quickly. First is what the Housing Commission is. Most people don't know or have a wrong impression. I'd like to talk about what we are. Number 2, talk about what our powers and responsibilities are. Number 3, talk about how affordable housing is developed, how it's financed, paid for, what our involvement in it is. Then number 4, relate that to homelessness. The first element is, what is the Housing Commission? We are a fairly unique organization. We are a unit of government, and we are a separate unit of government. We're not part of the city, we're not part of the state, we're not part of the federal government, although we have relationships with all 3. I know it's a strange animal. We're chartered by the state, we're governed locally. I'm the CEO. But we're separate, kind of like a ports authority or an airport authority, and I'm governed by 2 boards of commissioners. The parent board is the city council, sitting as another corporate public body called the San Diego Housing Authority. And that authority meets 1 Tuesday a month, more often when needed, when the city council will go out of office as council and into office as the housing authority. That's the parent board. They also appoint, and that's 9 members, of course. They also appoint a 7-member housing commission board, and the housing authority, remember city council, delegate most of their decision making to this housing commission. The housing commission are 7 individuals nominated by the mayor and confirmed by the city council sitting as the housing authority. One of those individuals is an East Village resident sitting up here with us, Gary Gramley. And Gary's been on the Housing Commission Board 8 years and just stepped down last week after 7 years as the chairman of that board. So this community is represented in their governance. My responsibility is to report to those 2 boards and to carry out their wishes, to employ staff, and to carry out programs. Okay? Our powers are great, but we don't have the one. We have a lot of the powers of government, but we don't have the one biggie. We cannot create our own money. We cannot tax. Okay? So you say, where does your money come from? It comes via a series of contracts. And we're not as big as the city or Qualcomm, but we're pretty good size. Our budget this year was about $237 million in new money, plus certain reserves and carryovers. And that money, over 80% of it comes from the federal government. Our biggest contract is with the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the low-income housing voucher program. The voucher program is a program where we help people pay the rent in the private marketplace. And right now we're helping some 15,300 families in that program. And we're funding about just short of $150 million a year into the private real estate economy here. Now that sounds like we're serving a lot of people. I'll point out, however, that we have on our waiting list now 75,000 families for those 15,000 vouchers. Our turnover is about 50 per month. Over half of the families we serve are elderly or disabled. We serve a segment of the population that's very low income. Our average income in that program is about $22,000 per year. I'll point out, however, that 75% of those families we serve have an average income of about $12,000 a year. This is a very low income population. And some of that we use to serve the homeless. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But that's our biggest program by far. We also, in addition to those 15,000 families, the Housing Commission, either directly or through a wholly owned nonprofit subsidiary, own and operate about 3,400 hard units of housing too, where we own the property or we're invested in it. Good examples of 2 on the edge of East Village are San Diego Square, which is Maureen O'Connor's old property that we purchased from her about 4 years ago, and we rehabbed. This is the Broadway and 9th. And if I do say so, we did a really good job on that property. We took something that looked like it belonged in the Soviet Union before the wall came down. And it looks like it belongs in Southern California now. We also just finished and dedicated last September the renovation of the old Hotel Churchill, located at the trolley tracks in 9th Street. And I think too we did a pretty good job on that. So so in addition to the Section 8 voucher program, 15,000 families, the 3,400 hard units we own that are scattered throughout the town. We also have issued bond financing over the years that's created 10,000 units of affordable housing owned by third parties. And not all of those have been put in East Village. About half of those we've put subsidy into that comes mainly from the city. In addition to multifamily housing that we've helped to develop, we have a first-time home buyers program where we provide a soft second mortgage that's helped to create about 5,000 new home buyers over the last 20 years. And one of our best programs, and unfortunately we don't get publicity when things go well, so some of our best stuff doesn't get noticed. Now, how does the financing work for the development of new housing, sir, that you asked about a while ago? There was a time when you could go to the federal government, get one chunk of money, and that paid for it all. And that's just, and if you use, I'm going to use a food analogy, there's a hunk of meat, and that's your meal. The way it works now is more like lasagna financing. You got layers of money that goes into making a project work. And most of the money comes via a program called the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. And tax credits really leverages the private sector. And I know this one well. I've worked for a tax credit syndicator in Chicago before moving here 8 years ago. And we had properties all over the country where we invested in it. Private sector investors will provide money to invest in these properties. They get a tax break on the monies they invest, as long as the properties are operated according to certain rules and regulations, which gives a good enforcement mechanism to keep these properties in good shape. Now, the tax credit program, there's so much of this allocated for the whole country every year. Of course, you can't, the feds did everything everybody wanted to do. There wouldn't be enough tax money to pay the tax credits to make it work. So it's limited on a per capita basis. Then the tax credits are allocated out to each state on a per capita basis, and people will compete for the money. And there are rules set out in Sacramento that sponsors, developers, if you will compete to get that money. And then that money comes in, and that is the prime mechanism for financing these programs. And it'll cover, depending on the project, anywhere from, what, Debbie, 60, 80% of the cost of a property. And you gotta have it. Absent that, nothing works. But that's never enough to do the whole deal. So what a developer has to do is look for something we call gap financing. And that's one of those layers of lasagna I was talking about. And the gap financing comes from us. And Debbie Ruane, sitting in the back, is my executive VP who covers all of our real estate activities. And basically the way it works is that we will get a certain amount of money allocated to us from the city based on how well the economy is going via two programs. Inclusionary zoning, and that's where a developer agrees to make at least 10% of every property he or she does, affordable to families at or below 80% of median income. Either he or she's got to put 10% on site, or they pay a fee which goes to the city and then back to us. There's another program called inclusionary zoning, which produces less money, but is still valuable. That is a tax on private sector industry for creating jobs that pay people less than it takes to live in San Diego, with the assumption that if you don't pay somebody enough to be able to afford to live here, then that's an encumbrance on the government and the taxpayers, and there should be a payment made. So those two go into making the biggest sources of gap financing for us. There's also a separate federal program I won't confuse you with it, goes to the city and through to us. But we use these gap financing monies to help developers make tax credit deals work, okay? The way we do that is we've got two opportunities available all the time to developers. They're on our website. They're called, each is a Notice of Fund Availability, NOFA or NOFA. The NOFA just means we got money. Come get it if you qualify. And so the money is out there. We got the two of them. One is for permanent supportive housing that we've had out there separately since 2014. The other one is not. It's just affordable housing for families below about 50 to 60% of median income. And so those two NOFAs are outstanding. We tell developers, you read the NOFA, you come show us what you can do, and we take first come, first serve, and then we run out of money. Now, in tight times like during the Great Recession, say circa about 2009, 2010, we didn't have a whole lot of money. With all the building cranes up there now and all the inclusionary zoning generating these fees, we got more than we had 5 or 6 years ago. And we got a number of properties that we've funded. A good example, you heard Brad a while ago talk about the property down on Imperial Avenue. That is permanent supportive housing. We did fund that. That is coming up. That is in East Village. At the same time we approved that one, we approved one out in Kensington too. About the same size and the same funding levels, same population base. On my website, and the Housing Commission's website is a good one. Let me refer you to that. It is www.sdhc for San Diego Housing Commission, sdhc.org. It's a first-class website. We try to be as transparent as we can on everything we do. We operate on the notion that you're going to find out anyway, so we put it all out there. So take a look at that, and if you want me or one of our people to come back, Joan, and talk again, we'd be glad to do it. But it's divided up in all these different programmatic areas. But what we've helped to produce over the years, we also issued tax-exempt bond financing, I mentioned a minute ago, that's produced 10,000 units in the last 30 years. And about half of those we've provided funding for. So we are a significant presence in this city. If you want to see where these properties are located, on the website, all the properties we own and operate are Google mapped on there. I'm old school enough, so that just still amazes me. You can go there, we have one page, click on the indicator, you can do a windshield survey of every property we own, and we don't have a dog in the bunch, I assure you. They're all in good shape. Else I wouldn't be here. I'd be back in Chicago. Let's talk about homelessness for a minute. The way all this relates to homelessness. Up until about 2010, we weren't involved in that arena hardly at all, except for providing some of the financing through the lasagna financing for two of Father Joe's towers. The one down on Imperial and the one at 14th and Market. We provided funding for it. Gap financing made the tax credit deal work. 2010, Mayor Sanders' staff approached me about us taking over administration of the city's winter tents. And I tell people, my first thought was to take my cane upside somebody's head in City Hall. My second thought was, we do housing for poor people. If anybody's poor, is a homeless person. So we should be in the middle of that. So beginning in 2010, we took over the administration of the shelter. From that, we've gotten more and more involved in homelessness activities over the years. We can take our Section 8 program and target that for particular groups if we've got good reason to do it. One of those is called project basing, where we target the units to a property, and it stays with that property, rather than family taking the voucher and going out and finding their own place to live. Another is called sponsor basing, where we tell a sponsor, we will let you tell us who to give those vouchers to. And that allows us to target certain individuals. Good example of project basing is the new Celadon Tower that went up at 8th and
Broadway.
Broadway, yes, sir, about a year ago, that tall, copper-colored building. That's affordable housing, that's a tax credit deal done by a big developer out of, called Bridge Housing out of San Francisco, 250 units. What we did, we told them, you'll house 88 homeless folks in there. We'll provide a voucher subsidy to lower the cost so they can afford to live there. So we project-based 88 vouchers there. And that has helped them to be able to afford to serve a lower income individual. Somebody making, say, a homeless person with an income, say, a SSI, $10,000 a year, instead of somebody making 25, 30. Makes all the difference. Another good example is Connections Housing, the old World Trade Center. Y'all remember that one? Mm-hmm. I think you all supported that one, if I remember correctly. We've got 89 vouchers in that one, which is helping make that one work financially as well. And we've got those scattered all over town. And again, remember, when we do our best work, nobody notices. So this has helped to scatter them out. And we've got plans to continue doing that way into the future. Most of what we do is not targeted to project specific. Some of it is, where we either work with Civic San Diego in a targeted area downtown, or where somebody comes in with a project that fits our project basing criteria for money. What we do otherwise is that we have these NOFAs out there, these Notice of Funding Availability, where we expect the market to come to us, and then we will fund it if it makes sense. So that if a project is in proper zoning, and the developers put a good deal together, and it's going to work financially, then we'll participate with it.